Greetings, I'm Wolf.
And I'm Aubrie,
reporting for Animal People World News. South Korea has taken a major step toward ending animal testing. The National Assembly has passed an amendment to the country's chemical evaluation law, requiring both government and private laboratories to prioritize alternative methods of testing new chemicals before resorting to the use of vertebrate animals. It will also ban repeated testing of chemicals whose effects on animals are already known. Animal testing of cosmetic products is already illegal in South Korea as of February 2017. The new law will hopefully reverse a trend of increasing animal research in South Korea. 3 million animals were used in experiments last year, more than 3 times as many as in 2008. 9 out of 10 lab animals were rodents, and a third of all experiments involved suffering without pain relief, according to Korean government figures. South Korea is not the only country to take recent positive steps for animals in laboratories. On March 30th, Japan abolished a federal requirement that all pesticides be tested on dogs. The tests, which involve feeding pesticide to beagles for 1 year and then dissecting the dogs to examine the effects, were determined to have little value in predicting risks to humans. In the United States, meanwhile, the Environmental Protection Agency has begun accepting non-animal methods of pesticide testing. The spending bill, recently signed by President Trump, will defund medical testing on dogs at Veterans Affairs hospitals. A congressional bill to permanently prohibit such tests is currently under review.
A landmark U.S. court ruling strengthened endangered species protections for wild animals held in captivity. On April 11th, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled against the owners of Cricket Hollow Animal Park in Iowa on behalf of tigers and lemurs held at the roadside zoo. The tigers were kept in cages so filthy that 4 of the cats died of ill health over a 2-year period, while the lemurs, who are naturally social animals, were housed in isolation with no enrichment. The court ruled that such treatment not only violated animal welfare law, but also constituted harassment of endangered animals under the Endangered Species Act, upholding a previous decision in 2016, which the zoo owners had appealed. The Department of Agriculture has revoked the zoo's license, and the animals are to be moved to other facilities. The case sets an important precedent for prosecution of cruelty or neglect toward endangered animals held in captivity. Says Stephen Wells, the director of the Animal Legal Defense Fund, the 8th Circuit's ruling puts roadside zoos, circuses, and private owners on notice that they can no longer ignore endangered animals' unique biological and psychological needs. In June of 2015, the Fish and Wildlife Service granted endangered species protection to chimpanzees in laboratories, thereby ending invasive research on chimps within the United States. Unfortunately, the Endangered Species Act is itself in legal peril. Earlier this month, the Trump administration selected Susan Combs, a fierce opponent of the act, as acting secretary for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. A pending executive order would eliminate protections for species classified as threatened, that is, at high risk of becoming endangered.
A number of nonprofit rescue organizations have been linked to the commercial dog breeding industry. Each year, representatives from dozens of U.S. and Canadian animal groups converge on 2 dog auctions held in the state of Missouri. There, they bid on dogs supplied by commercial breeders. The dogs are then adopted out in the name of puppy mill rescue, while their breeders return home with profits of hundreds or even thousands of dollars per animal. The practice began with rescuers acquiring surplus or rejected dogs who would otherwise be abandoned or killed in exchange for small nominal payments. Yet the commercial market for rescue dogs has since grown so large that breeders have started deliberately overbreeding to supply it. Some breeders now earn up to 40% of their income from selling dogs to so-called rescuers. Altogether, The Washington Post calculates that the rescue auction market has supplied $2.7 million to breeders since 2009 in payment for 5,761 dogs. Meanwhile, hundreds of dogs without homes are put down in shelters every year. Says Julie Castle of Best Friends Animal Society. You can be part of ending killing in shelters by adopting your next pet from your local shelter or a legitimate organization. Buying puppies from puppy mill breeders and selling them to the public is not rescue. It's the pet trade, and it needs to be exposed.
On April 9th, Canada began its annual commercial slaughter of seal pups. Last year, some 80,000 harp and gray seals were slaughtered off the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador. Seal hunting is commonly defended as necessary to prevent competition with cod fishermen. However, scientific studies have mostly found that cod are not seals' preferred prey, and that the fish species decline is mostly a result of human overfishing. Many seal hunters are Indigenous Inuit, for whom the practice is a traditional livelihood and whose communities suffer disproportionately from poverty and hunger. The Canadian government subsidizes seal hunting, spending around 3 times more to support the industry than it brings in from sales of meat and skin each year. Seal pups are killed between 1 and 3 months of age, and regulations require that hunters first shoot seals in order to stun them, and then club them over the head to ensure death. According to a 2002 report published in the Canadian Veterinary Journal, between 1/10 and 1/3 of seals remain conscious after the first shot. Most carcasses are abandoned after skinning, with more than 90% of meat going to waste. Earlier this month, India announced that it would ban import of seal products, following the United States, Mexico, Russia, and the European Union. After Canada, the African nation of Namibia hosts the world's second largest seal hunt. Over the past 10 years, Namibia has exported 400,000 skins and tens of thousands of gallons of oil from Cape Fur seals.
Footage revealing the suffering of sheep exported live out of Australia is making waves among lawmakers and industry leaders. The video, collected by the organization Animals Australia, shows animals aboard a vessel that sailed from Australia to Qatar in August 2017. The animals can be seen suffering from heat stroke while caked in their own waste. 2,400 of the sheep died while at sea, including infant lambs born on the ship. Those who reached Qatar alive were documented being beaten and thrown about by slaughter workers leading up to their deaths. Until now, campaigns by animal activists to end live export have had little success. Last year, Australia exported nearly 2 million live sheep, as well as close to 1 million cows, to be slaughtered for meat in countries across the Middle East and Asia. Yet the latest video has sparked mass outrage, including from politicians. Australia's Ministry of Agriculture has launched an investigation of the industry, and Deputy Prime Minister Michael McCormack has called to revoke the licenses of exporters found to have permitted abuse. The Australian Live Exporters Council has announced a number of industry reforms in an effort to regain political support, including appointing veterinarians and independent inspectors to oversee future shipments of animals. Yet political pressure is mounting to shut down the live export industry for good. Member of Parliament Susan Ley, herself a former defender of live export, has pledged to introduce a bill that would phase out the trade entirely.
Having been a farmer for 17 years, having represented rural Australia and sheep producers, I've got to say, if I'm calling time on this industry, I think time is well and truly past. But I am deadly serious. I want to see this live sheep trade permanently cease.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo's Virunga National Park, 6 park staff members were murdered on April 9th. They were attacked by members of one of Congo's many armed militia groups, and 5 park rangers and their driver were killed. But 1 ranger survived and has been treated for his injuries. Virunga National Park has the highest biodiversity in all of Africa. It is home to 2 species each of gorilla and elephant, the giraffe-like okapi, and birds including the shoebill and barbet. Virunga's wild animals are threatened by poaching, both for subsistence by local people and to supply the commercial bushmeat trade. Militia and rebel groups in the Congolese military all participate in bushmeat trafficking, as well as violent crimes against humans. 175 rangers have now been murdered in Virunga National Park, and across Africa, more than 70% of wildlife rangers report facing life-threatening encounters with poachers. But only 40% have access to proper equipment and amenities to protect themselves. On April 22nd, Virunga will compete in the Virgin Money Marathon in London, represented by Angèle, one of the park's first women rangers. Says Angèle, "I wanted to be a ranger in Virunga so I could help protect the park and its amazing wildlife. I am excited and a bit nervous to travel to London as I have never left the Congo. But at least I don't have to worry about avoiding the hippos."
Finally, 2 Polynesian states have declared safe harbor for marine fish. On April 12th, the U.S. state of Hawaii's First Circuit Court declared void all existing permits to capture fish for aquariums. Until now, millions of fish were captured every year to supply the aquarium industry. The court decision to invalidate current permits still allows Hawaii's Department of Land and Natural Resources to issue new ones, provided it considers each permit's environmental impact beforehand. A bill to phase out all capture of wild fish passed Hawaii's state Congress in May 2017, but was vetoed by Governor David Ige. It is now known that fish are sensitive to pain and distress, and surprisingly intelligent. Tuskfish and cod can use tools, while groupers and moray eels hunt together using body language to communicate. Yet fish captured from the wild are treated with little regard for their welfare. For example, when fish are first captured from deep water, they are pierced with needles to deflate their swim bladders so that they don't explode in the shallow water of home aquariums. Meanwhile, the nation of Samoa, not to be confused with American Samoa, a U.S. territory in the same island chain, has declared its waters a shark sanctuary. In March, Prime Minister Tuilepa announced an end to all commercial fishing, sale, and trade of either sharks or rays. Samoan waters are home to nearly 30 species of these fish, including the blue shark. More than 20 million blue sharks are killed every year for their fins, which are considered a delicacy in East Asian cuisines. Besides fish, Samoa's birds are also in need of protection. Wild pigeon hunting has long been illegal, but remains common, claiming the lives of up to 33,000 birds each year. Victims include the monomia or tooth-billed pigeon, Samoa's national bird. The monomia is a close relative of the dodo and is itself perilously close to extinction. A recently launched Care2 petition calls for the Samoan government to protect the so-called little dodo by cracking down on pigeon hunting.
There are many more issues affecting animals worldwide. Visit the Animal People Forum to learn more and to share your perspective on animal protection. Also visit our Patreon page to learn how you can support the future production of episodes. Thank you for your ongoing support, and see you next episode.